Warning, this podcast contains descriptions of murder, torture and abuse. As a result, it may not be suitable for everybody. Atlanta, Georgia, USA. The birthplace of the civil rights movement, a beautifully diverse city, and home to the largest drive-through restaurant in the world. Listen to the hometown murder cases of Wayne Williams, the Atlanta child murderer, Leo Frank, who was subsequently lynched after murdering a child, and the controversial killing of Rayshard Brooks, killed by an Atlanta PD officer, Garrett Rolfe. Before I start this episode of Hometown Murders, just like to say the reason we've chosen Atlanta, Georgia, based really on the Black Lives Matter initiative. It's very prevalent in the news, and I thought this week we wanted to choose cases that highlighted that racial inequality. If you look at Atlanta, beautifully diverse city, however, the equality, the way black people have been treated there, the depravity is probably one of the worst in America. Hard for me as a white English person to relate. However, when anybody's got a platform, however small, even a small podcast like Hometown Murders, we have got a platform, so we do need to use it. So that's the reason we've chosen Atlanta today for the Hometown Murders. Hopefully these three cases you're going to hear today is going to give you a little bit of insight how black lives have been impacted over the years, and all we can say is we stand true, we stand up with black lives. We've got your back. We promise to help where we can, to speak out and support where needed, and listen, hope you enjoy the episodes, even due to the subject, but please enjoy, and hopefully it educates as well. So Hometown Murders really does support Black Lives Matters. Thank you. Last thing we need to do, just before we get on to the first case, a little bit of homework for you guys, so that the podcast can grow, we can get more followers. If I can ask you a little bit of homework, please share the podcast, tell your friends, subscribe if you haven't already done so, leave a rating and a review. That really does help. So please help us if you can, if you're in a position to do so. Very much appreciated. That's all I've got to say on the matter. So next we're going on to the first case. This is the Atlanta child murderers. Wayne Williams. He was born May 27th, 1958. He's serving a life imprisonment for the killing of two adult men in Atlanta in 1981. He's believed by police and a number of people have killed at least 23 to 30 Atlanta childs in 1979 to 81. He's been never tried of these child murders and continues to maintain his innocence, as has others on his behalf. He became a suspect in May 1981, and since he's been incarcerated, there have been no similar killings of black children or adolescents in Atlanta. Not in the same way, however, there are some that has been linked that officially hasn't had the same MO. Wayne Williams, he was raised in the Dixie Hills neighborhood of southwest Atlanta, Georgia. He's the son of Homer and Faye Williams, both who were parents of him and teachers. Williams graduated from Douglas High School and developed a keen interest in radio and journalism. He built his own carrier current radio station and began frequenting stations WIGO and the WAOK radio stations, where he befriended a number of announcing crew and began dabbling in becoming a pop music producer and manager. Williams first came to the attention as a suspect in the Atlanta murders on the morning of Monday the 22nd, 1981. That was in May. A police surveillance team watching the James Jackson Parkway Bridge spanning the Chattahoochee River, the site where several victims' bodies had been discovered, heard a big loud splash, suggesting that something had been thrown from the bridge into the river below. The first automobile to exit the bridge after the splash at roughly 2:50 a.m. belonged to Williams. When he was stopped, he told police he was on his way to check on an address in a neighbouring town ahead of an audition following the morning when the young singer named Cheryl Johnson. Both the phone number he gave police and Cheryl Johnson turned out to be fictitious. 2 days later, on May 24th, the nude body of 27-year-old Nathaniel Carter, who had been missing for 4 days, was discovered in the river. The medical examiner ruled he had died of probable asphyxia, but never specifically said he had been strangled. Police thought that Williams had killed Carter and that his body was the source of the sound they heard as his car crossed the bridge. Wayne Williams failed 3 polygraph tests, and hairs and fibres retrieved from the body of another victim, Jimmy Ray Payne, who found to be consistent with those of his home, car and dog. Co-workers told police they had seen Williams with scratches on his face and arms around the time, and investigators surmised that it could have been inflicted by victims during the struggle. Williams held a press conference outside his home to claim his innocence, volunteering he had failed the polygraph test, which would have been inadmissible in court. Williams was again questioned by police for 12 hours on the June 3rd and 4th at FBI headquarters and released without arrest or charge after maintaining him under surveillance. Williams was arrested on June 21st, 1981 for the murders of Carter and Payne. His trial began on January 6, 1982 in Fulton County. During a 2-month trial, prosecutors matched to a number of victims 19 sources of fibre from Williams' home and car, his bedsheet, bathroom, gloves, clothes, carpets, dog and unusual tribal carpet fibre. Other evidence included witness testimony placing Williams with several victims while they were all alive and inconsistencies in his account of his whereabouts. He took the stand in his own defence, which alienated the jury. After 12 hours of deliberation, the jury told him he was found guilty in February 27 of the murder of Carter and Payne. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. After Williams became a suspect, the child murder killing stopped. As of this time, none of the child murdered had Williams been convicted of. The killings, going back to 1979, first began with Edward Hope Smith, also known as Teddy, and Alfred Evans, known as Q. They both disappeared 4 days apart. Both were 14. Their bodies were found on July 28th in a wooded area, Smith with a .22 caliber gunshot wound in his upper back. They were believed to be the first victims of the killer. On September the 4th, the next victim, 14-year-old Milton Harvey, disappeared while on an errand to the bank for his mother. He was riding a yellow 10-speed bike, which found a week later in a remote area of Atlanta. His body was not recovered until November of that year. On October 21st, 9-year-old Yusef Bell went to the store to buy brunt snuff for a neighbour, Ulla Birdsong, at Reese's grocery on McDaniel Street. A witness said she saw Youssef near the intersection of McDaniel and Fulton getting into a blue car before he disappeared. His body was found on November 8th in the abandoned E.P. Johnston Elementary School by a school janitor who was looking for a place to urinate. Bell's body was found clothed in brown cut-off shorts he was last seen wearing, though they had a piece of masking tape stuck to them. He'd been hit over the head twice and the cause of death was strangulation. Police at the time did not link his disappearance to the previous killings. On March the 4th, 1980, the first female victim, 12-year-old Angel Lanier, disappeared. She left the house around 4 p.m. wearing a denim outfit and was last seen at a friend's house watching the television programme Sanford and Son. Lanier's body was found 6 days later in a wooded vacant lot along Campbellton Road, wearing the same clothes in which she left home. A pair of white panties that did not belong to Lanier was stuffed in her mouth and her hands were bound with electrical cord. The cause of death was strangulation. On March 11th, 1 week after Lanier's disappearance, 11-year-old Geoffrey Mathis disappeared while on an errand for his mother. He was wearing grey jogging pants, brown clothes and a white and green shirt. Months later, girl said she saw him get into a blue car with a light-skinned man and a dark-skinned man. The body of Geoffrey Mathis was found in a briar-covered patch of woodlands 11 months after he disappeared, by which time it was not possible to identify a cause of death. On May 18th, 14-year-old Ed Middlebrooks disappeared. He was last seen answering the telephone at his home, then leaving in a hurry on his bicycle, taking with him a hammer to repair the bicycle. His body was found the following day next to his bike in the rear garage of an Atlanta bar. The bar was located next door to what was then the Georgia Department of Offender Rehabilitation. His pockets were turned inside out, his chest and arms had slight stab wounds, and the cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma to the head. A few weeks before he disappeared, Middlebrooks had testified against 3 juveniles in a robbery case. On June 9th, 12-year-old Christopher Richardson went missing on his way to a local pool. He was last seen walking towards the DeKalb County's Midway Recreation Centre in Midway Park. He was wearing blue shorts, a light blue shirt and blue tennis shoes. His body was not found until the following January, clothed in unfamiliar swimming trunks, along with the body of a later victim, Earl Terrell. The cause of Richardson's death was not determined. On June 22nd, 7-year-old Latoya Wilson disappeared from her parents' apartment. According to a witness, she appeared to have been abducted by 2 men, one of whom was seen climbing into the apartment window and holding Wilson in his arms as he spoke to the other man in the parking lot. On October 18th, Wilson's body was found in a fenced-in area at the end of Verbena Street in Atlanta. By then, the body was skeletonized and no cause of death could be established. The next day, June 23rd, 10-year-old Aaron Winch disappeared after having been seen near a local grocery store getting into a blue Chevrolet with either 1 or 2 black men. A female witness says she saw Winch being led from Tanner's Corner Grocery by a 6-foot-tall, 180-pound black male, approximately 30 years old, with a moustache and goatee. Witnesses' description of the car marked a description of a similar car implicating the early Geoffrey Mathis disappearance. At 6 p.m, Winch was seen at a shopping centre. The following day, Winch's body was found under a bridge. The official cause of death was asphyxiation from a broken neck suffered in a fall. In July 1980, 2 more children, Anthony Carter and Earl Terrell, was murdered. Between August and November 1980, 5 more killings took place. All the victims were African American children between the ages of 7 and 14, and most were killed via asphyxiation. The murders continued until 1981. The first victim in the new year was Luby Goethe, who disappeared on January 3rd. Goethe's body was found on February 5th. Gerta's friend, Terry Pugh, went missing in January. An anonymous caller told the police where to find Pugh's body. Terry lived in the same apartment as Eddie Teddy Smith, who was killed in 1979. In February and March 1981, 6 more bodies were discovered, believed to be linked to the previous homicides. Among the dead were the body of Eddie Duncan, the first adult victim. In April, 20-year-old Larry Rogers, 28-year-old John Porter and 21-year-old Jimmy Ray Payne were also murdered. Porter and Payne were ex-convicts and had just recently been released from Arundel State Prison while serving time for burglary. On May 12, 1981, FBI agents found the body of 17-year-old William Billy Starr Barrett on a curb in a wooded area near his home. A witness, 32-year-old Harold Wood, a custodian from Southwest High School, had run out of gas about a mile from the scene. Wood described a black man standing over and observing the location where the body was found before driving away in a white over blue Cadillac. During the end of May 1981, the last reported victim was added to the list, 27-year-old Nathaniel Carter. He was last seen by gardener Robert I. Henry at the entrance of Rialto Theatre in Atlanta, reportedly holding hands with Wayne Williams. His body was discovered just hours later. Investigator Chet Detelinger created a map of victims' locations. Despite the differences in age, the victims fell within the same geographical perimeters. They were connected in Memorial Drive and 11 major streets in the area. On August 6, 2005, journalists reported that Charles T. Sanders of the KKK once praised the crimes in secretly recorded conversations. Although Sanders did not claim responsibility for many of the deaths, lawyers for Williams believed the evidence would help their bid for a new trial for Williams. The police had investigated Sanders in relation to the murders, but they dropped the probe into his and the KKK's possible involvement after Sanders were kept under close surveillance for 7 weeks, during which 4 more victims were killed, and after Sanders and 2 of his brothers volunteered for and passed a lie detector test. Criminal profiler John E. Douglas said that while he believes that Williams committed many of the murders, he does not think that he committed them all. Douglas added that he believes that the law enforcement authorities had some idea who the other killers are, cryptically adding, quote, "It isn't a single offender and the truth isn't pleasant," end quote. On January 29, 2007, attorneys for the state of Georgia agreed to allow DNA testings of the dog hair that had been used to help convict Williams. The decision was a response to a legal filing as part of Williams' efforts to appeal his conviction and life sentences. Jack Martin, Williams' lawyer, asked Fulton County Superior Court judge to allow DNA tests on canine and human hair and blood, stating the results might help Williams win a new trial. The test results showed that the hairs on the bodies contained the same mitochondrial DNA sequence as Williams' dog, a sequence that occurs only in about 1 in 100 dogs. Dr. Elizabeth Whittam, director of the UC Davis laboratory that carried out the testings, told the Associated Press that while the results were, quote, fairly significant, they don't conclusively point to Williams' dog as the source of the hair, end quote. Later in 2007, the FBI performed DNA tests on human hairs found at one of the victims. The mitochondrial DNA sequence in the hairs would eliminate 98% of African Caribbean or African American persons by not matching their DNA. However, they match Williams' DNA and so do not eliminate the possibility that the hairs was his. On March 2019, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, Atlanta Police Chief Erica Shields announced that officials would retest evidence from the murders, which will be gathered by Atlanta Police Department, Fulton County District Attorney's Office, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. In a news conference, Mayor Bottoms said, quote, "It may be there is nothing left to be tested, but I do not think history will judge us by our actions, and we will be able to say we tried," end quote. Wayne Williams still maintains his innocence. The second hometown murders in Atlanta is Leo Marks Frank. He was born April 17, 1884 and died August 17, 1915. He was an American factory superintendent who was convicted in 1913 of the murder of 13-year-old employee Mary Phagan in Atlanta, Georgia. His trial and conviction appeals attracted national attention. He was lynched 2 years later in response to the commutation of the death sentence, became the focus of social, religious, political and racial concerns, particularly regarding anti-Semitism. Today, the consensus of researchers on the subject holds that Franks was wrongly convicted and Jim Conley was the likely actual murderer. Leo Frank was born to a Jewish American family in Texas. Frank was raised in New York and earned a degree in mechanical engineering from Cornell University before moving to Atlanta in 1908. Marrying in 1910, he involved himself in the city's Jewish community, was elected president of the Atlanta chapter of the B'nai B'rith, a Jewish fraternal organization, in 1912. Although anti-Semitism was not locally common, there were growing concerns regarding child labour at factories owned by members of the Jewish community. One of these children was Mary Phagan, who worked at the National Pencil Company, where Frank was director. The girl was strangled on April 26, 1913, and found dead in the factory's cellar the next morning. 2 notes made to look as she'd written them herself were found beside her body. Based on the mention of a night witch, they implicated the night watchman Newt Lee. Over the course of their investigation, the police arrested several men, including Lee, Frank and Jim Conley, a janitor at the factory. On May 24, 1913, Frank was indicted on the charge of murder and the case opened at Fulton County Superior Court on July 28th. The prosecution relied heavily on the testimony of Conley, who describes himself as a accomplice in the aftermath of murder, and who was defence at the trial argued was in fact the perpetrator of the murder. A guilty verdict was announced on August 25th. Frank and his lawyers made a series of unsuccessful appeals. Their first appeal in the Supreme Court of the United States failed in April 1915. Considering arguments from both sides as well as evidence not available at trial, Governor John M. Slayton commuted Frank's sentence from capital punishment to life in prison. The case attracted national press and many reporters deemed the conviction a travesty. Within Georgia, this outside criticism fueled anti-Semitism and hatred towards Frank. On August 16, 1915, he was kidnapped from prison by a group of armed men who were infuriated by the governor's decision and lynched at Marietta, Mary Phagan's hometown, the next morning. The new governor vowed to punish the lynchers, who include the prominent Marietta citizens, but nobody was charged. In 1986, Frank was posthumously pardoned at the Georgia State Board of Pardons and Parole, although not officially absolved of the crime. And the last hometown murder we're looking at is killing of Rayshard Brooks. For some, it very much is a case of murder. For others, not so much so. However, this is how I'm going to report it as his murder. On the 9th of June 2012, Rayshard Brooks, a 27-year-old African-American man, was shot and killed by Atlanta Police Department officer Garrett Rolfe. Officer Devin Brosnan responded to a complaint that Brooks was asleep in a car blocking a restaurant drive-through lane. Rolfe arrived after Brosnan radioed for assistance some minutes later. After a breathalyzer exam indicated that Brooks' blood alcohol content was above the legal limit for driving, Rolfe and Brosnan began to handcuff Brooks. Brooks scuffled with the officers, got hold of Brosnan's taser, punched Rolfe and ran. With Rolfe pursuing him, both half-turned and fired the taser toward Rolfe, then shot Brooks twice in the back. A third shot struck an occupied car. Brooks died after surgery. Footage from the incident from the officer's body cam, from a witness phone and from the restaurant's security system was widely broadcast. Rolfe was fired, Brosnan was placed on administration duty, and Police Chief Erica Shields resigned the following day. Based on these videos and witness reports, prosecutors claimed that Brooks was shot, Rolfe kicked Brooks and Brosnan stood on his shoulder. Rolfe had been charged with felony murder and 10 other offences. Brosnan with aggravated assault and 2 accounts of violation of oath. As background, Rayshard Brooks was a 27-year-old African-American restaurant worker who lived in Atlanta. He'd been married 8 years and had 3 daughters and a stepson. In February 2020, interviewed, he discussed 2 years he spent in prison and had difficulties after being released, such as difficulty finding work. A driving under the influence conviction could have led to reconvocation of the probation and return to prison. Garrett Rolfe earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Georgia State University in 2013 and began with the Atlanta Police Department that year. In 2016, he received a written reprimand for aiming his gun at a stolen car being pursued. The department's investigation concluded that Rolfe and other officers had engaged in erratic and unsafe driving that presented unacceptable risks to the public, and that after the vehicle had stopped and its occupants had surrendered, the officers' force that was clearly unreasonable and unnecessary. In January 2020, he received training on the use of deadly force at the County Police Academy, and in April he took a 9-hour course on de-escalation techniques. Devin Brosnan had been an Atlanta police officer since 2018. The county medical examiner ruled Brooks' death as homicide. This, again, is how I am reporting this as murder. The Atlanta Police Department asked the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to investigate. As of June 17, 2020, that investigation is still continuing. 2 police officers were removed from duty soon after. Rolfe was fired and Brosnan was placed on administration duty. On June 17th, Fulton County District Attorney announced 11 charges against Rolfe: felony murder, 5 counts of aggravated assault, 4 police oath violations and damage to property. He said Rolfe should have been aware that the taser Brooks had taken posed no danger, as after it being fired twice it could not be fired again, that Rolfe and Brosnan did not provide timely medical aid to Brooks, and that before they did, Rolfe kicked him and Brosnan stood on his shoulders, and that it was a violation of department policy for Rolfe to begin handcuffing Brooks before telling him he was being arrested. According to one law enforcement expert, quote, "In many situations, officers should tell someone what is happening because you don't want that person to react in surprise and the officers to take that surprise as resistance," end quote. Brosnan was charged with aggravated assault and 2 counts of violation of oath. A bond hearing for Rolfe scheduled for June 23rd was postponed because it conflicted with Brooks' funeral and family members had the right to be heard about any potential release. Brosnan was released after posting bond. Demonstrators gathered at the site of the shooting on June 12th and 13th. Protesters burned down a Wendy's restaurant, outside which Brooks was shot, set fire to several nearby cars and broke a television camera. On June 13, Atlanta's police chief Erica Shields resigned. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom said Shields had resigned in the hope that, quote, "the city may move forward with urgency and rebuild the trust so desperately needed throughout communities," end quote. On June 15, Mayor Bottoms ordered the Atlanta Police Department overhaul its use of police forces and policies. Beginning the day after charges against Rolfe was announced, Atlanta police officers staged a blue flu protest, calling in sick for their shifts. Thank you for everybody who's listened to this episode. This episode has been researched, written and hosted by me, Andrew Knight. Sound, music and editing has been provided by Harry Edmondson. Make sure you subscribe to the show anywhere where you listen to your podcast. This allows the episode to be downloaded automatically as soon as it's released. Please reach out to us on the social media. We're at Hometown Murders on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. We love to hear from you. Please support the show by leaving a 5-star rating or a review. It really does help